Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the Ugandan presidential hopeful Bobi Wine says that the millions of signatures that he needs to submit for the impending candidacy for next year's vote are missing after security forces raided his offices in central Kampala. Also, despite the challenges of doing business in the time of coronavirus, innovation never stops. One startup in Nigeria is offering a new way of helping out struggling traders by streamlining their supply chain. And a growing call for calm in the run-up to Guinea's presidential elections. Efforts are being ramped up to try and keep this weekend's poll peaceful. We hear from our correspondents on the ground. But first, in Uganda, popular opposition politician and singer Bobi Wine says that security forces took the documents he needs to run for president after they raided his party office on Wednesday. Streets were cordoned off as police and military surrounded the building in Kampala. Wine, whose real name is Robert Chagulanyi, says that money, party-branded material and equipment were also removed. Candidates for next year's vote had been given until Friday to hand in nomination forms. Wine's hoping to unseat President Yoweri Museveni, who will be running for his sixth term in office. Well, Grania Harrington's joining us now from Kampala. Grania, so why were Wine's NUP headquarters raided in the first place, and what was taken?
So there are several conflicting reports about this. The police and the military are saying they're simply applying law and order, in that a law came in last year banning civilians from wearing military attire. And part of this is a red beret, which is worn by a section of the military. But it's also really become the symbol of Bobi Wine and his movement. You can see even here in Kampala, his supporters will wear it all over town. That's how you can identify his supporters. So first of all, they say that this law was directly aimed at them. But they also say that there was a lot more behind this raid today, and that it wasn't just about taking clothing, that other very important things were taken. So these nomination forms with signatures from party supporters, from party members that are needed legally for not only Bobi Wine, but his prospective MPs to run for office, his supporters say that they were taken in that raid today. And that's a legal obligation to present these in order to be able to run. They also claim that large amounts of cash were taken. Now, nominations to run are very expensive here, and donors to the party had donated money so that MPs, prospective MPs in poorer areas of Uganda could run for MP. And so this is really a crucial part of his campaign that was taken today, according to Bobi Wine and his party.
Now, Grania, Wine's had several run-ins with police ever since he broke out onto the political stage in the country. He said that he's been politically persecuted. Do you read much into the timing of Wednesday's raid?
Yeah, so there have been a lot of run-ins with the police, as you say, not only when he is running as a politician, as a candidate, but also when he tries to hold concerts, he's been arrested. He has been charged with treason, with inciting riot. And it was only yesterday that he announced that he had very large donations of money to allow his party to be able to present candidates all over the country, which is really crucial for the parliamentary campaign. And of course, this is a very tense election. President Museveni is running for his sixth term in power. He's changed the constitution in order to be able to run. And Bobi Wine is very, very popular. Campaigning in person has been banned because of COVID-19 regulations. President Museveni has said that people must run via the media or via social media. Now, Bobi Wine has already said that he will defy these regulations because President Museveni, he claims, has a much broader control over the media in Uganda, and so that he has to campaign in person. And Bobi Wine tends to gather very, very large crowds when he campaigns. And so his supporters and his party are saying that this is a sign of a president who's threatened. And they have consistently accused the security forces of simply propping up the president rather than applying law and order. And they say this is simply another symbol of this and effectively a way of sabotaging Bobi Wine's presidential campaign.
Thanks very much. Gonya Harrington there for us in Kampala. Look now at some news in brief. In Nigeria, unidentified men targeted protesters, who were taking to the streets on Wednesday, again calling for genuine police reform. Anger over the notorious SARS unit's use of disproportionate violence and extortion led to demonstrations first breaking out earlier this month. The government said that the squad is being scrapped as part of wider changes, but the immediate announcement that a new SWAT team would fill the gaps left by SARS has left many angry, as they fear that the change is in name only. A Congolese activist has been fined €1,000 for grabbing a 19th century Chadian funeral staff from a museum in Paris. Emery Mwazulu Diabanza took the artifact back in June in protest over the removal of African art from the continent as a result of colonization. He's also snatched items of African heritage from museums in the Netherlands and the French city of Marseille, where he also faces court cases. Last week, French MPs voted to return looted Beninese and Senegalese art after colonial forces brought them to Paris more than a century ago. The G20's agreed to do whatever it takes to support the global economy by helping low-income countries in debt distress on a case-by-case basis. The principle of the common framework will include China for the first time. It's a major creditor for many African nations, but has long been unwilling to consider writing off any debt. The head of the World Bank said that the urgency of the coronavirus crisis requires a firmer response to reducing debt for poorer countries. The new framework is due to be finalized over the coming weeks. Now, as elsewhere, the coronavirus crisis has hit economies across Africa hard. However, the adversity has led to some businesses coming up with new ways of operating in a bid to keep going. One startup in Nigeria is helping out struggling informal traders streamline their supply chain. Take a look.
Funmilayo Akinola is one in about 1.2 million Nigerian micro-business owners. As their name indicates, these informal traders are small, but together they represent 98% of all retail sales in Nigeria. Under COVID, they couldn't fill up their stock in traditional crowded markets. Luckily for them, many found an alternative, a startup that manages secure supply chains.
If not for them, a lot of companies didn't open that period. And that was the time provisions were selling, that we are even making more gain.
That's not just reassuring for micro businesses, but also for multinational brands trying to sell their products.
For such a big market, getting your product into retail is a nightmare, right? You're talking about a retail space that is very fragmented, several million small stores.
This digitalization has also created jobs.
You now have to have physical distribution by motorcycles. So it's creating a new employment chain. It's creating new revenue streams. And that is just scratching the surface of digitization.
Reassuring news at a time where many people have lost income, and when the COVID crisis is expected to push sub-Saharan Africa into its first recession in 25 years.
In the run-up to Guinea's presidential election due this weekend, efforts are being ramped up to try and keep the poll peaceful. In the past, clashes between opposition activists and the police have often turned violent. Our correspondents report.
As the presidential election draws nearer, there are growing calls for calm, including from Guinea's biggest music stars, which have formed a collective called Guinea All Stars, asking the population to unite in their latest hit, Notre Guinée, Our Guinea.
C'est un message de paix, mais bien sûr, parallèlement, il y a aussi un message de justice, puisque sans paix, sans justice, il n'y a pas de paix.
On est écouté par nos fans. Ils vont aussi véhiculer le message qu'on est en train de véhiculer. Et je pense que ça va vraiment donner un impact.
Online, a Bloggers Association in Guinea, is also fighting against the dissemination of hate speech on social media. They want the population to cooperate.
La première chose à faire, ce n'est surtout pas de partager ces propos-là. Ensuite, la seconde chose que nous faisons, nous leur demandons de nous envoyer ces différents propos, de nous les signaler pour que nous les répertorions et que nous puissions prendre la meilleure action pour les circonscrire et donc limiter leur impact.
The faithful have also been calling on the population to stick together. Elhaj Dirabi Jabi, a religious man, started a foundation that spreads a message of peace. In the run-up to the elections, he leads awareness campaigns in the suburbs of Conakry, where young people regularly clash with the police during demonstrations.
Les Guinéens sont les mêmes frères, les Guinéens sont tous des cousins. Nous sommes tellement métissés dans notre pays et nous ne voulons pas voir notre pays tomber dans un cercle de violence parce que ça n'aboutira à rien.
In places of worship, collective prayers were organised during the election campaign for a violence-free election. All Guineans really want is one thing, a democratic and peaceful election.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Take care.
Residents from France's disadvantaged suburbs tell their own stories and take the viewers beyond the usual clichés about the French banlieue.
Sur le plan humain, c'est une expérience de fou en fait.
Les habitants valent beaucoup mieux que ce qu'on en dit.
Tu rends fier ta ville, les gens qui, quand ils me voient dans la rue, me disent « je suis fier de toi, je t'ai vu passer à la télé, c'est bien comment t'as parlé, tu nous as bien représenté ».
Watch their daily reality in the Banlieue Project on France 24 and France24.com.